Hey, all, Baruch Levy B here from Defiant Spirit. Thanks for tuning in. Got a new office behind me, got less facial hair, lots of changes in my life. Want to share with you blog I just wrote, podcast. I think maybe comes out tomorrow, but I think you can get it on YouTube. Jump over to defiantspirit.org. Moving forward, never moving on. And it's a very important distinction. Whether you're right now in mourning and devastation over what happened and what continues to happen in Israel, Hamas terror and continuing to terrorize both Palestinians and Israeli hostages. Whether it's personal, maybe the death of a loved one, maybe you're facing or going through a disease or divorce, or I call them the dark D's, lots of D's in our lives. However they descend, when darkness descends in our lives, it's inevitable and totally natural to just come to a halt. I remember back when I was in, it was 20, 30 years ago at this point, I was in college, and there was a total eclipse. Maybe some of you remember it. It must have been 1992, somewhere in there. And it was the middle of the day. I've never experienced a total eclipse. And all of a sudden, total eclipse and pitch black, or almost pitch black. And all of a sudden the crickets come out, and it was like nightlife came, and everybody just stopped. I remember it was a busy campus, and like a movie, we just stopped, because when darkness descends, we stop in our tracks. It's what happens. It's what's happened in Israel. It's what happened now to, world Jewry right now, stopped in their tracks, just trying to catch our collective breath. It's what you're going through, regardless of those issues, whatever one of those dark D's or things that don't start with D, it's absolutely positively natural. You have to go into survival mode. You have to get your bearings, your wits about you. You have to take an individual or a collective breath. And that's what we've been doing for the past 4 weeks, 4 weeks. For those of us who are Israeli or care about Israel, or Jews, or just decent people who care about, good people suffering at the hands of evil terrorists like Hamas. And it's been hard to do much other than survive, much other than just watch the news, and all of our energy and all of our attention turned to the people who are still in harm's way, who are still being used as human shields, who are still being held hostage, right? Our babies are being held hostage. And everything in me says, stand still. I was just counseling somebody who's going through this in the death of a loved one. Stand still. It's been a month, and people around them are starting to say, move on. People around me have said over the past few weeks, move on. Here's a message to all of you who are in whatever kind of darkness you're in. Never move on. Never move on. You will never move on. And if you're listening, don't tell somebody to move on. It is impossible to move on. If what we mean by moving on is leave it behind, right? Forget about it. Live your life and let it go. Now, I am not suggesting for a second to stand still. I am saying in every ounce of my being, move forward. And that's the heart of what I want to talk about, because there's a world difference between moving on and moving forward. Moving on means forget and leave it behind. Move forward means carry it with you. Feel it. Think about it. Write about it. Remember it, and do something constructive with it. Don't sit and, as my teacher, Edith Eger, a logotherapist, says, don't take up residence in the victimhood. You've been victimized. Any of those dark deeds will victimize you. They will take your power away. You are not wrong for being victimized. It is not your fault for being victimized. Being human means in some way, shape, or form, you're going to be victimized. But whether we take up residence there in the victimhood, whether that becomes our new identity and we become victims, that's on us. And our work is, when we are ready to stand up, to move forward, to carry that fire forward. That's why I call it carrying the fire. Carry their fire forward. It can be collective fire. It can be individual fire, to make sure you become a guardian of something that was taken. Whether, again, it's the death of a loved one or collective atrocity of Hamas, you find your way, your voice to contribute. And it may be indirect. It might be going back to your kids' or grandkids' lives, as I always say, to love more fully and live more fiercely, not in spite of the death that you've just gone through of a loved one, because of it. We owe it to them to live. As my teacher, Viktor Frankl, says, to say yes to life in spite of everything, as an act of defiance. That's what we're here to do. It's time to move forward. At least for me, I can't speak for anybody else. I'm done watching the news. I'm done talking about it. I'm done dwelling in it. I'll still continue to fight the fight. I'll still continue to educate the ignorant. I'll still continue to combat the haters, but I am moving forward. I hope you will join me, as Viktor Frankl says, transforming tragedy into triumph by not allowing us to descend into the darkness, by losing ourselves, giving death, however that form comes, a second victory. Hamas's death, a second victory of living in fear, or the death of a loved one of living in terror, or the disease you're going through as defining your life. Don't give it that power. We must take back our power, and that means moving forward, but never moving on. If you want to hear more, jump over, read the video, sign up for my podcast. I think it drops tomorrow. Jump over to YouTube where you can watch the video. A lot more coming. If you're interested in anything I do, it's over at defiantspirit.org. Until the next time, defy your number, live your spirit, move forward, never move on.